Welcome, everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen, and today I have with me Krystal and Eric. How are you guys?
Very good.
Good. How
How's
are
it going
you?
today?
Doing good. This is my first time interviewing two people at once.
Oh,
Um,
that'll be fun.
could be a little crazy here.
Oh, us too. Yeah, we're gonna have to try and isolate our responses.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it should be fun. So when we connected to set up this podcast, this episode, I found you guys on Instagram as you had kind of started your travels of the Midwest, and I just really loved what you guys were doing. It looked like you're both working full time, yet you're still finding a way to travel. So I
Mhm.
was really intrigued by what you guys are doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And yeah, it's been a lot. So just a little bit of background on us. I am Eric, and this
Hi,
is
Crystal.
yeah, this is Krystal here, and we are, yes, like you mentioned, traveling the Midwest here on the middle of a 2-month road trip throughout the
Mhm.
Midwest. We are the photographers, videographers, and owners of Nagel Media Company, but yes, also
Okay.
working full-time remote corporate jobs as well to help pay those bills and keep the travel adventures going.
Yeah, so it's been a lot to manage, and I think as interested as you are, we were equally as interested to kind of set off on this journey and say, is this really possible for us to
Mhm.
maintain this?
Mhm.
Yeah, definitely. I know having probably like three or four different jobs right now, trying to make this travel stuff, work for me.
Mm.
It definitely can be very difficult to make it work.
For
Um,
sure, a lot of planning.
yeah,
We've
yeah, that's for sure.
Mhm.
So you guys said you're on what, a 2-month road trip?
Hmm.
That's correct.
Okay. So is this the first kind of big thing you've done while, working full time while having your media business?
So I would say we're ever expanding in that. So I
Yeah.
think the first kind of maiden voyage was earlier this year. We did take a trip down, a 2-week trip to from Pennsylvania, where our home base is, to Florida and back, and that was
Okay.
our testing out. Can we do this? Would this
Yeah.
work?
Mhm.
And kind of with that proven possible, then this is the largest, I think, trip by far that
It
we've now
is.
planned.
Yeah, we kind of dipped that toe into the water, and our goal was let's not take any vacation days in those 2 weeks. And it kind of blew us away how easy it was because
Mhm.
we worked remote for a long time, but we mostly just do trips kind of around our local area in PA, working with clients like just around that area on the weekends. For photography and videography. So we've been used to balancing both businesses, but adding
Mhm.
large scale travel into that was definitely new. And then once we said, oh, wow, we could do this, and not only can we, but it was a lot of fun. Then we did kind of the northern part of the eastern seaboard. So we did another trip from Pennsylvania up to Maine, a much
Okay.
shorter one, even that. But again, just like testing the waters, working. And we said, we got to make this bigger. We got to do something more grand. And so we said 2 months sounds good after doing 2 weeks, and let's see if we can scale it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's addicting, isn't it? Once you start doing that, it's like, oh, I want to do this all the time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's kind of, the natural progression of things, is like we just keep pushing that boundary out farther and farther and seeing
Hmm.
where we can go. Because it is, to your point, totally addicting,
Yeah.
finding what you
Yeah,
can on these trips.
yeah, definitely. The next one's going to be 2 years, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's the problem is we're constantly kind of looking forward and trying to figure out what that is. And now that we're almost at the end of this 2-month trip, I don't think I ever really envisioned what it would feel like to be done with the 2 months, and we're not ready to go home. We want to
Mhm.
do more and do more, and it's like, okay, what is that next step then?
Yeah, definitely. Well, really quick, I gotta have a side question here.
Yeah.
I headed up to Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire in at the end of September.
Oh,
And I'm
awesome.
curious, what did you think of Maine, of that area, and what would you recommend someone do up there?
Oh yeah, Eric's looking at me because I love Maine. I really fell in love with Maine, and for background, I'm someone who does not enjoy the cold at all. So
Okay.
falling in love with one of the coldest places that we could experience is quite monumental. But we've been up to Maine a couple of times now since we first went, just because we're kind of addicted to the Portland area of Maine. So I would say definitely hit Portland. That is a place we could see ourselves living one day if I could get over the
Mhm.
winters.
Mhm.
But the whole area is so beautiful. Like Maine is just awesome because you get literally every box checked. You get like the craggly coast with the ocean. You can get nature and hiking. You can get mountains, which is ridiculous, and you can get it all like very close together, which is just awesome.
And then specifically in Portland, there's an amazing community vibe there. Very welcoming city, very beautiful city as well. So just right off of the mountains, then boom, you're in a really great urban area on top of it. We made a couple video series about Maine just to highlight some of the most fun stuff to do there. We are, to her point, obsessed with
We're
that area.
obsessed. Yeah.
Oh man, you're making me want to go there. Okay.
Yeah, I'm
I'll have
excited
to
and I'm
check out some of
jealous
your
now.
videos.
We're already talking about like, well, let's pop up really quick for a
Really quick
weekend
to
in the
Maine.
fall. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
we've been there once already this year.
There you go. There you go.
Mhm.
So what has it been like? As you said, you have all these things going on. What has that planning been like for you guys, and how have you made it work this past 2 months traveling?
Okay, I think that's an. I'll take that first, and then I'll let Krystal elaborate. We did have a pretty robust plan heading into the trip, and then as it has gone on, we've been more comfortable improvising and also adapting to
Mhm.
whatever situation that the road kind of presents. And that's something that we really embraced and found a lot of value in. So it's.
Yeah.
I think that what was key for us was having a robust plan to feel comfortable, but then
Mhm.
also, embracing that flexibility to kind of just do what happens.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we had kind of the course really roughly charted on a map where we had an idea of which states we wanted to visit. And we
Mhm.
set out with the idea that every 2 weeks we would plan the next 2 weeks. So,
Okay.
to give ourselves like a little bit more flexibility. So, when we set out, the first 2 weeks of our trip was booked. And like we said, we work corporate. So, having Wi Fi is really critical to us.
Mhm.
And with that, we lose a little bit of flexibility because our goal was originally to kind of camp on the weekends and stay at Airbnbs during the week. And then, of course, we're in this middle of a terrible, terrible heat wave that's just lasted all summer. So,
Yeah.
camping hasn't been happening very much, which is where that spontaneity kind of helped us, where we said, okay, this trip looks maybe a little bit different than we had imagined, but we can adapt to that. So, after those first 2 weeks, then that canceled camping trip, we said, all right, let's just do kind of go where our heart takes us and do what we feel like doing. And we've been able to, I think, make a better trip because we've said, you know what, we really like this place and we have an opportunity to stay here like an extra weekend. We're just going to take it. And
Mhm.
we did that in Milwaukee, and that kind of made the experience in Milwaukee. And then everything else that just kind of cascaded after that had felt really good because we were making those decisions in the moment.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think that's something that I really appreciate when it comes to travel is having, kind of a loose plan, agenda in place, and then, understanding that things are probably not going to go ideally well or exactly as you plan. And so having some flexibility built in there can be really nice. And you might just find something that you really enjoy and you want to, spend more time, or you see something you don't and you want to move on.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really critical. And I think it's something that we've noticed we want even more of, actually. And that's been a really big lesson we've learned on this trip is that our dependence on Airbnbs for the Wi-Fi and kind of weather protection and things like that is it's the most critical part of our
Mhm.
trip. And so when we look forward, we're trying to figure out how can we actually be even more spontaneous, and not really rely on having that Airbnb or not having because right now we have a rooftop tent, so maybe that helps give a little bit of guidance there. So in the rooftop tent, if it storms or something, like you're not supposed to be sleeping in that. And then there's also obviously no Wi-Fi there, so it's not a place where we can work. But what we're looking for is a way to be more spontaneous, where if we show up in a place and we end up loving it and we weren't planning on staying there, how are we able to make that work now and say, actually, we're going to spend some time here? And I think that's the key that we want to unlock for maybe the next trip.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm sure you guys have learned and adapted as you've gone on this trip.
Absolutely. It's been great to kind of get addicted to the flexibility in a way. Setting out on the trip, kind of terrified about not knowing where I'm going to lay my head next. But now at this point, it's like, we'll figure it out. That'll be good.
Which is so uncharacteristic, at least for me. You're maybe a little more spontaneous than I am, but I'm a project manager by trade. So for me, I'm a planner. Like, I want everything planned out as far as I can possibly imagine. And I really thought I would have a hard time adapting to, like you said, just not knowing where we're going to sleep like this weekend. And I've adapted to that really well. And I think that challenge has showed me, like, okay, this travel and these experiences make that worth it, where I'm not even stressed about that anymore.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there's something so freeing in that, of just kind of being in the moment and seeing where life takes you.
Absolutely. And that's what we really enjoyed about road tripping specifically, and that slower type of travel. There's been a couple of instances as we've been driving through the country, places that you'll happen upon that you never would have found on the map, and we've been able to pull over on the side of the road and say, okay, that's what we're going to do on this trip. Between point A and point B, we found the world's largest mailbox and things like that. Just like, the craziest stuff that you never thought you would see. And those have been some of the highlights, actually, those smaller moments of the trip. So that flexibility is so great for us. Yeah,
definitely. So kind of take me through the road trip. Where all have you guys been so far?
Okay. So we've now hit 11 states, doubling back. So we're counting them twice now. So we're going to hit 12 total. And over 3,000 miles. So we began in Pennsylvania, and then staying in Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, South Dakota, Nebraska, Iowa, Kansas, Missouri, and now Indiana. We'll hit Kentucky, and then we'll be back in Pennsylvania. So that is this from a state perspective, the 11 of the 12 states that we'll be heading to on this trip.
I'm so impressed with your memory.
It's hard to remember all that.
Yeah, I've gotten very intimate with the map, where I learned a couple of things. Like, oh no way, like Ohio borders Kentucky, and you're just like rattling them off. So I clearly need another geography lesson.
That's funny. As I've traveled more and traveled the U.S. a lot, I love looking at Google Maps and like seeing all the places I've been and like seeing, okay, maybe I could take this road and see something different. I think we're really lucky here in the U.S.
We have a pillow, like a pillowcase that has the United States maps on it and fabric markers. We're marking them in over the trip, so that's been really fun too.
It's been a really cool part of it. Yeah, and this is our first time really road tripping too. So we've, pre-pandemic, had a habit of kind of flying and seeing different states and doing different things, but it was really, we've been kind of thrust into the road trip life, and being able to just pull over or be like, you know what, we're really close to Iowa, let's just dip in to see it, has been really cool to be able to do.
And I'm just going to add, she's really downplaying that. She once told me she wouldn't drive more than 4 hours in a single day. And now she can, she totally hasn't. She's the one that really deserves the credit in terms of embracing the road trip life.
I think especially in the Midwest U.S., like just driving across the open country, I think that's part of the fun of it.
It is. There's this stretch in between Kansas and Nebraska, right? And it is just the most beautiful thing we've ever seen. And it's nothing, but that's the beauty of it. It's just these rolling fields and the quietness when you get out of the car and the road that just topples over these hills. It's truly just like you're on a different planet.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Have you guys been out to Wyoming?
No, it is so high on the list though. We really, really want to get through like Wyoming and Idaho, Montana, up to that region, because I think we would just fall in love with that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. If you like doing the road tripping, I think, doing something through those three states would be, I think you'd really like it.
I'm excited for that. That's, when we talk about what is next, we're thinking about how we can get to farther west and specifically that northwest area. And potentially, how are we going to do that? We're going to go with the van, or we're going to continue to do this kind of Airbnb style traveling? Or we're just, trying to run our break even points and figure out what that plan is there. But we totally want to go to that area.
Yeah, well, I will say, having grown up in Washington State and spending a lot of time out here in the West, there's a lot of places to camp, a lot of great sights to see as you're driving. And actually, yesterday, when we're recording this, I was camping up at Kolchak Lake, which has now become famous on Instagram, and it was just beautiful. I mean, just barely touched by humans at all. It's amazing to see.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, that's great. We're gonna have to get the tips from you then.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to travel and road trip across a lot of the Western U.S. So I can definitely help you out there. As for the East Coast, I don't know that as well, so I'll get your advice there.
That's
there you go. We'll help each other out.
Between the three of us, we have a complete view.
Yeah, we have a full map of the U.S.
So what's been some of the fun things you've seen or done on this trip? What's kind of been some of the highlights?
Oh wow, that's crazy. It feels like it's gone by so fast, but it's been like the trip of a lifetime too. It's hard to even conceptualize that this has all been one trip.
It is.
Because we've been to so many, and even though it's under the same bucket of the Midwest, I do feel like the places that we've been to, the states that we've been to, are so different from one another.
They are.
But I think that I'll highlight one, and then I'll let Krystal highlight one as well. But when we were in Milwaukee specifically, we were coming up on the weekend, and it just so happened that it was the Red Bull Flugtag that weekend, which is if you've ever seen it, people build at-home flying machines and then try and see how long they can hover until they fall into a body of water. So we got to go, and that was a free event that we just happened to be in the right place, right time, and go to that like really, really cool, strange event. So that was like one of the highlights for sure. It sticks in my mind.
It really was. That was an exciting thing. We passed like 3 other festivals on the way to that festival. So that was a memorable day.
Milwaukee's happening.
I know there's really been so many moments like that some of them are even hard to kind of reconcile in our mind, like we call them these peak experiences, like every day a little bit. Your brain has to be like, this thing you're doing is totally normal, even though it's not, because you're at the top of the St. Louis Arch, 630 feet above the world. But your brain has to say, no, this is a totally normal thing that you're doing, so that you don't get overwhelmed with all of these new adventures. But I actually think that was a really memorable thing for me, like going up into the Arch and seeing St. Louis, just because that was a place that I've never really seen myself going. Like there was no real draw there for me. And then to be there and to be looking around, it was a little bit of a pinch me moment. Like, wow, I'm pretty far from home and this is not where I thought I would be. It was just cool.
Yeah. It's amazing that I feel like, when you're doing something like that, it makes you put life into perspective. Like, wow, I can't believe this is happening right now. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, 100%. Especially when things start to mesh together. And that's a problem that I've had road tripping, where when you fly somewhere, it's ceremonious, right? You have the preparation for the plane. You go to the airport, you get on the plane, you go to your destination, and then there's also a very clear bookend when you come home. But when we're on the road, we don't have those bookends, and everything is just kind of streamlined together into one long trip. And it's kind of hard sometimes for me to be like, oh, these are these individual, because it all feels like one.
Exactly. It's very surreal to drive from place to place. And, all that was in the middle was you being in a car.
Yeah.
Like that was the
They're
only
like, oh,
difference.
you're in Nebraska now. Google told me so.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like every day there's something, amazing that's happening too. I feel like it's a lot to take in.
It is, yeah. It's definitely, it requires a little bit, like something that we noticed early on is we were trying to like get out and do something every day after work. So, we do our 9 to 5, we close the laptop, and for like, all right, let's go see something where we are. And that held steady for like 2.5 weeks.
Straight.
Yeah. And eventually our bodies are like, what are you doing to us?
Yeah.
Because you wake up, you have a full work day, and then you're out and you're exploring a city. And sometimes we have to say, all right, you know what, we're in this place we've never been, but it's equally as cool to just like put on a TV show and make dinner and relax a little bit to give my brain a little bit of a break from all these new experiences.
That's right.
Yeah. Your senses are being overwhelmed so much of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just cool to be in an apartment in Minneapolis.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool too.
Yeah.
When you guys are in Minneapolis, did you go to they got all that art and the statues and stuff out
Yeah.
kind of by downtown?
We drove right by it.
Yes, we did see it from the car. So when we got to Minneapolis, that was the start of the heat wave. So I think we were seeing like 105 in Minneapolis, and it was just unbearable. Yeah, I mean they had warnings. That was actually the weekend we had to cancel camping because we saw the weather warnings where the heat index was too high, and they were just telling people stay inside, just don't go anywhere. So we did a little bit of driving around, but that was one of the first places that we were like, all right, we're going to take this as an opportunity to relax instead of just try and get everything in.
We went to Minnehaha Falls.
We did do
was
that,
the one big pillar event, I think, from that staying in Minneapolis.
Yeah, which was great. Like, have you heard of that, or have you been there? Just this huge waterfall kind of right outside the city.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I didn't get the opportunity to go there though.
Yeah, that was a cool one. That's really something, because especially coming from the East Coast, we have, we've always lived pretty close to Philly, and like there's just nothing like that near our big cities.
Yeah,
so
the accessibility to nature of that scale is like really cool and nice and shady for when it's 100.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was actually just in Philly earlier this year. That was a ton of fun, just exploring all the history there.
Oh, there's so much.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't imagine, having like growing up there with all of that, so much of like the US culture and history happened right there. Whereas like in the West, it's totally different. Like nothing has happened out here really.
Yeah.
Well, that's funny because it's a grass is greener thing. Because I grew up right outside of Philadelphia, and that is what you could say about it, but like it's not like you go around thinking, man, all this history is right here. It's like you're like, wow, I wish I was out where the Wild West was. It's kind of the opposite of like the great beyond out west seems so interesting and intriguing from my perspective too.
Because you haven't been exposed to it as much. And that's actually funny because we were really taken aback on this Midwest road trip, and I don't want to offend anyone out there, but when I thought of the Midwest originally, like I did not think there would be history in the Midwest, like nothing super notable, and it totally blew me out of the water because Eric's a big history buff, and I tend to enjoy it as well, but we've learned so much on this trip, and visiting cities like Detroit, who just have such a huge footprint in American history. And I mean, even since then, like learning about Native American history and things like that it just aren't as prominent on the East Coast has been really incredible.
Yeah, definitely. I love going to the Midwest. I think it's really underrated and people really kind of shun it a little bit, but there's so much out there, and it's such a unique part of the world, I would say.
It is. I'm so happy we had the opportunity to do this because I totally agree with that comment that people kind of will just shrug it off and they're flyover states or something like that, and they've been anything but. Like they've really been captivating in every way possible.
The big cities down to the small towns, so much worth seeing, and the people have been so welcoming and
so
wonderful.
Nice,
you talk about Midwest kindness. Oh boy, I love the people out here.
Yeah, definitely. And the sunsets are amazing too.
Can't beat them.
Yeah.
We've especially when we were in, I feel like Michigan, we had
Yeah.
some of the best sunrises that I've
We did.
seen.
Yeah.
That have just totally blew me away.
Yeah. Very cool. So as you've gone on this trip the last few weeks, have you had any like major challenges come up or any issues?
I would say that the camping and that element was going to be such a more prominent piece of the trip when we originally planned it. But we did not take into account that it would be quite as hot as it was, and that's part, heat wave, part our poor planning as well, because we just didn't, we just thought it would be less hot than it was. So we had to do a lot of reshuffling. That was I think the most prominent issue, other than like spotty Wi-Fi sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've been pretty lucky. It's been great, especially being on the tail end, to look back, and we felt like there are some things that we missed out on that maybe we wanted to do in the moment or we're hoping to do, and we changed plans. But when we look back at the trip, we've said it a couple times throughout the last 2 months, and we're just like, wow, everything has turned out really perfectly. Like, we weren't supposed to spend, an extended amount of time in Milwaukee. But we ended up getting, a photo shoot collaboration with a hotel, and we were like, why not? Let's just stay a little bit longer. And we ran into the Red Bull Food Tog and those festivals, and that condensed some of the time that we had in other places. But there were some of those places that we got to, and we were like, you know what? No, 2 nights here was perfect. Like, we wouldn't have wanted to do more here. So even the things that kind of set us off course and changed, I think benefited us in the long run.
Yeah, that's awesome. What hotel in Milwaukee?
It was St. Kate Arts Hotel, which was such an awesome place too. Really incredible and beautiful place. So it was awesome to shoot for them. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I love Milwaukee. I've gotten to spend a lot of time there.
Of the places, because we're gonna definitely do like a Midwest city power rankings at the end of this whole thing. But like definitely in top tier, and like answer to the question of like seeing could I live in this city? That's probably like definitely first tier, maybe first city to think about of the trip. It was, and we're not expecting a whole lot from there. This is one of those ones that we're like, oh my gosh, Milwaukee is awesome.
Yeah, it's a fun city, and again, I think it's one of those underrated ones that we don't really hear much about.
It is. It really is. Oh, I just thought of something else of a challenge. So we're at a house sit right now. We're doing a house sit and a dog sit, and through a company called Trusted House Sitters. And this was, see, there we go, on cue.
There you go.
So it was supposed to be 2 weeks actually here in Indianapolis, and the host had to change their travel plans, and they condensed it to 1 week, which originally was a big bummer for us because and I don't know, are you familiar with Trusted House Sitting?
No, I've heard of like Rover and stuff like that, but never house sitting.
Yeah. So it's like, imagine Airbnb, but for people who are traveling, but also have pets. So the homeowners say, I need to go somewhere during this week. And then they open that up as a listing so that people who are traveling can then answer that call and say, well, I'll be in that area at that time. And, so basically, as a traveler, you get to stay in the homeowner's home for free. But not without responsibility, right? So you watch after the home, the pets, and things like that. But because it's free, 2 weeks out of a 2-month road trip, that's a pretty significant expense that we were going to avoid out on, being able to have 2 weeks. And so when they condensed that was kind of a bummer for us at first, looking at our accommodation budget. But it also ended up working out because now we're actually going to get to stop in Kentucky and see like Cincinnati and some of those places that we wouldn't have gotten to see on the tail end if we had stayed here longer.
Yeah, it's funny how things kind of work out. You maybe there's something bad that happens, but it opens up another opportunity, like you just said.
It does, yeah. And we still got the house sitting opportunity, which was fun. That's definitely something we wanted to cross off the list for this trip. We've heard of a lot of people doing it, and this is our first experience doing it ourselves, and glad to have done it and finally figured out what it's all about.
And meet these awesome pups.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm gonna have to look into that more. That would be a good way to travel and save some money.
It is. We've seen online people can really rely on it. Like I think some people kind of do it full time. They use it almost like a couch surfing app, and they just go from place to place. It's not without its issues, though. I'll say so. It's really popular internationally, and I think
Okay.
just in different cultures, people do a better job of kind of accommodating and like trusting, on both ends to get things done. Here we've seen it be a little bit more transactional. So like for example, they recommend like, oh, you guys should meet each other and have a welcome dinner. And that's not been our experience with any of the people that we've talked to looking to do it in the US. They're like, well, we'll just leave you the key and you can let yourself in. And we're like, but we should meet your pets. Are they going to be okay with us? Like,
Yeah.
There was definitely a point when we were like opening the door. We're like, we hope we don't get eaten by these dogs.
these dogs
Yeah,
are
right.
huge. They're massive. Yeah, they're massive. So
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, but they're lovely. There's no such thing. Just big kisses from the onset.
Yeah, they are. No, they're perfect.
That's awesome. So through this trip, have you guys like had a set budget per day or tried to stick to a sort of budget? How's that kind of worked out?
Yeah, yes and no. So we definitely set an accommodation budget. That was the only thing that we had set because the way that we see it is like having a place to work from Monday through Friday. Our corporate jobs are always our top priority. So we need to make sure that we have Wi-Fi, we have stable connection, we have a safe place that we can work from to be able to get that done. And sometimes that's a coffee shop, right? But for the most part, we wanted to be able to like conduct our work as normal. And knowing that accommodations can get pretty pricey pretty quick, so we did set a cap on accommodations just to kind of urge us away from springing for the place and then that happening too many times in a row. So we did set an accommodation budget, but everything else we've just been trying to do, just kind of trying to, what would you say, like
Tracking.
manage our normal.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's almost
expenses.
as if it would be for all other line items, almost like a lateral shift because we're, at home, we're going to have groceries and we're going to eat out anyway. So it's, we're not doing anything other than tracking, I guess, normal spend as we would at home, but also here. Gas is going to go up, of course, but you got to drive the car. So there's nothing you can hard cap that on in terms of a budget.
Yeah.
And Krystal's done an amazing job of tracking it just for like informational purposes and forecasting. But yeah, the budget piece really came with the accommodations.
Yeah. Otherwise, just trying to live our life as normal as possible. And we are lucky enough that our home base, we don't pay rent. So we've had a nice opportunity to, save up some of that money. And now it's like having a pricey rent payment on the road. But, the rest of it isn't interrupted too much. And to keep us accountable, I have been summarizing them and putting them on Instagram because I know that's been a fad lately. And I'm like, you know what, let's put our finances out there, because there was also a lot that surprised me about this. Like I was under the assumption that the Midwest would be dirt cheap. And it is not. It is comparable to a lot of other places. And, to me, I'm like, but we're in the middle of nowhere in Nebraska. Like, how can they charge us? But it's like, it's still a functioning economy. It's still a really nice place. So yeah, I don't know. That's my East Coast brain thinking that. But
that's funny. Have you guys seen a lot of growth in your media business as well as yourselves over this trip?
In myself, absolutely. I think that this has been an incredibly eye-opening experience, memories for a lifetime, and also just like learning. So either it be, about a specific historical topic or about a region, or just understanding a place not based on how it's billed nationally, like from the stereotype of the place, but actually going there and getting an understanding of the place for myself, seeing what it's really like there. I think like immeasurable personal growth for me. And then I think it's just been From the business side, we've taken a back seat. We kind of have a foothold with a lot of clients in Pennsylvania.
So we normally shoot like short-term rentals, so Airbnbs, Verbos, things like that, and we have a really robust client base in our hometown that we kind of home base out of. And we have that because we had our foot on the accelerator so hard, like in that area when we built it. For this trip, we actually kind of purposely pulled back from that a little bit because we were afraid of introducing too many variables. So like the corporate jobs are going to continue no matter what we do. So that's priority number one. Priority number two is like coping with the travel and also having fun with the travel and getting used to it. And then priority number three was, hey, if we get a client here or there, that's kind of just icing on the cake. So like when we found St. Kate in Milwaukee, that just kind of, worked out. And it was so cool to get back into that niche and like shoot again. And I know I'm definitely missing it. Like I'm emailing all our clients. I'm like, we're coming home soon. Like let's get all of our photo shoots set up, because we did kind of purposely decelerate a little bit just so we could focus on everything here.
Almost as an investment in the future though, because the downtown, like the St. Kate hotel would be our first hotel client. So now we've expanded our client base outside of short-term rentals and now into hotels. So hopefully in the future, we have that in the media kit now to show and potentially get expand the business further.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you guys do you plan to expand it to other cities, other countries, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we haven't set a solid goal so far because we've just been having so much fun doing what we're doing. So we, in the last year and a half, maybe is when we started it, a year and a half ago. And we've come just so far in that time, like so much farther than we ever imagined it would have been. And it's become a huge passion for us. So I think we're at the point where we do want those, like that passion of the photography and videography and the passion of travel, we want that to start to converge. We want to converge those paths so that when we do travel somewhere, it's not like bottom of the list anymore. It's like, oh, well, let's open ourselves up to this area before we visit so we can book these clients and get that work there too. Now that we know we can handle it all and we can kind of just complete it, the whole feeling.
Yeah. Do you plan to maybe replace the corporate job with that full time?
Oh boy, we talk about that. I always look at it from a very business mindset, right? And looking for that break-even point. And it is so fun and such a passion right now. I am concerned about relying on it to pay the bills. I do like it as an extra on top of the corporate paycheck, personally. So it'd be ideally, that's a great thought, but I do find when I think at the nuts and bolts of it, it's a tough sell for me.
No,
personally.
I agree. And it's tough because we've both been in corporate for like just over 10 years now. So it's kind of in our blood. Like we're so used to it. We work remote. We both love our jobs. We love the people we work with. It's a hard sell to be like, well, suddenly you're not going to have, a 401k anymore, and you're not going to have health insurance. And it's like, you're going to have to work triple as hard on this side business, this thing that you love. So it once in a while, like after a hard day, will be like a carrot dangling in front of us. But in terms of actually pursuing it, I think I agree. It's nice to have as a backup, but hopefully we don't ever need it as a backup.
Yeah, I like that. Well, cool. So you're finishing out this road trip. Where in Kentucky are you headed to?
It's called Newport, Kentucky, right on the border there with Ohio, beneath Cincinnati. That's as much as I know about it too.
Yeah, we actually found them because Northern Kentucky they have their own tourism board now, so they're doing a real big push for tourism within Northern Kentucky, and we're like, all right, why not? Let's go see what it's all about.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't really know much about Kentucky other than I've spent some time in Louisville, but other than that, I don't really know anything.
Yeah, no, us either. We dipped up when we were in Nashville a couple years ago. We dipped up into Bowling Green, Kentucky, but it was a total ghost town when we had gone.
Yeah, it might have been the day, but man, I think we were the only people there.
Yeah, I don't think we saw another human.
That's funny.
I'll definitely let you know what Kentucky's like
Yeah.
after we visit. Coming up next week. Yeah, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to hear about that. Do you have any other trips planned in the near future?
We're trying to keep it open. We know we're going to take some days, just sitting somewhere, whether it be
Yeah.
on a beach or
Yeah.
back up in Maine or something like that. We're
An
definitely
actual
an
vacation.
actual vacation where we're
Yeah.
taking days off of
Yeah.
work is
Which you
coming up.
forget about when you travel while you work. It's like, oh yeah, we should take some time off and
Mhm.
just do half of this for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Mhm. And then it just becomes about planning that larger leg.
Mhm.
We want to get out west and southwest, all that good stuff. Playing around heavily with the van life idea.
Mhm.
So that might be what the next big chapter is. But just kind of got to see what that looks like. But definitely want to get back on the road before too long.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned with travel and vacation. That's something that I think a lot of people have a misconception about. I know
Mm.
whenever I talk to people about, my travels, I'm like, yes, I'm traveling and it's a lot of fun and everything, but it's like they're full days. Like it's probably more work than my
Mhm.
actual normal life.
Yeah.
It's not like sitting on a beach vacation kind of thing. Like I don't do that very often.
You are so right
But
about
people
that.
think I'm having fun and
Yeah.
doing nothing all day.
No, you're so right. We face that misconception a lot as well too, and it's funny for us too at the end of the day to be like, oh my gosh, we're exhausted. I think it's the only thing
Yeah.
that could really push us into a vacation because otherwise we love to run ourselves thin.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We're not taking a 2-month vacation. That's why I gotta
No.
remind my family
Mhm.
back at home. It's like I'm not out here doing nothing. I'm doing way more.
Yeah. I think this gets into a whole different conversation we don't need to get into, but I think especially since COVID happened and people, made all these changes in their lives, I think we're starting to see that, you don't have to necessarily be in one place all the time to do your job. You don't need to, you know, just be stuck in the same kind of loop every single day. You can do all these different things and still be a really productive person.
Mhm. The thing that has surprised me the most on that is the company I work for, there's a lot of people who I think they don't really get it. They don't really get the remote work piece. And so I'm supported to work remotely, but there's aren't a lot of other people who want to do it for themselves. And
Mhm.
in the conversations when I started being open with my colleagues about like, well, this is what I'm doing and this is where I am, and this week I'm in St. Louis and this week I'm in Indianapolis and this and that, the response that I've received from people has been so amazingly overwhelming almost because they're like, wow, I wish I could do that. And maybe I will do that for a week or two. And, my husband or my wife or my kid would love to do that too. And it's amazing to just watch that change in people where, even if they go into the office one day a week or they are fully remote, they're not really traveling, and to start to see their gears turn like that, to see someone doing it, it's been cool to see just people come to with that idea like, oh, that's something that's possible, and that sounds like fun.
It's been
Yeah.
great to see it come to the forefront and to be a part of it, to your point about like the awakening to the idea of not needing to be in the office.
Yeah.
It's something that we are very passionate about, just as much as traveling. Even if we didn't travel, we would be passionate about being
Being
fully
remote.
remote.
Mhm.
And it's been just something that we've prioritized, and it's paid off so greatly with things like this trip. Um, Getting into these positions where we have now fully remote support, it's so helpful to our life.
Yeah.
Big
Mhm.
for our happiness.
Yeah. So I gotta ask. Sorry, this made me think of a fun question. Uh, so spending 2 months together in a car, how is that? How's that gone?
Oh, you want me to answer?
Sure.
No, honestly, I think it's been really good. I don't know what it is, but we're used to spending a ton of time together.
You got to think we're also like the fully remote piece is that we're never really out of each other's hair.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
before we
yeah,
got in the
true, true.
car, we were
Yeah.
always in the other room. So it's very easy for us to spend a lot of time together. I know
Yeah.
that's not everybody's case, and it's
Yeah.
not a scandalous answer, but we're actually
Yeah.
like super used to spending all of our time together.
It's strange. I think you like ran for groceries or something one day, not even on this trip, and he was gone for 10 minutes, and I was like, what do I do? Like, like I haven't been this far away from you in ages.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, so I think we're lucky. I don't think that's the norm by any means. I also sleep a lot when we drive, so that probably keeps him from going insane.
Do you guys switch off driving a lot, or Eric, are you also driving?
It's me.
But by choice.
Yes, I would not want to be a passenger. So I was like in field sales before this, so like I got really addicted to being on the road, and I just don't think I can ride in a car anymore. I think I have to drive the car, and it works out nicely.
And he does actually have to. It's good because I have a chronic hip injury and I can't drive for long periods of time anyway. So it kind of works out. I'm like, this is great. You can take us around.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way, Eric. I really like and prefer being the driver as to a passenger. It just,
For sure.
I don't know why, but I like driving.
I told her I find such great peace driving the car and like looking at the open road pass by. I don't know, it's big for me. Like it's a big part of it is like, yeah, I'm driving my car across the world. I just get so philosophical about it. I
love it. Well, awesome. Krystal, Eric, any other stories or big revelations that you want to share?
Oh, you can get us talking about this trip, I think, all the time. It's I would encourage people if they're interested in doing it to just, do it. Set out the time, see if you can, plot out a course and just get in the car and go. Because it really has been I thought that it would be impactful, and it's more impactful than I even originally imagined.
It has been. And I think I think some people take for granted traveling around their own state or their own country. They get kind of caught up in the glitz and the glamour of like going international and jet setting and doing all of this. And I know I definitely suffered from that for a bit. And it's been really humbling and really awesome to see these places for myself. And it's opened my eyes the way that not only I travel, but the way that I see tourism. And it's made me want to be a better tourist, right? Like more sustainable, more ethical, make sure that my tourist dollars are going where I want them to go to help the communities that I'm visiting. And that has just been so impactful for me that I, just always want to encourage other people to go out there and do the small things, take small steps so that they can get closer to those feelings as well and maybe discover something that they love about their community or their state or, just the place that they are.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we have so much here in the US. I think we're really lucky in that. And so much diversity. I mean, you can get any sort of landscape or culture you want here. And so it's, yes, there's a lot of great places abroad, but here as well, there's a lot of amazing places. And like you said, helping out, some of these communities, helping out, people and making sure that we are traveling in an ethical way. I think that's really important to do too. I think there's a lot of times when tourists I think especially when Americans travel internationally, there's kind of a bad perception there because we can be a little bit rude, but I think traveling does help us see the world differently and kind of respect and appreciate other people as well.
Completely agree. And I think we all need a little bit more of that nowadays. It's nice to have.
Yeah, definitely. Well, awesome. Krystal and Eric, where can people find you?
So they can find us on Instagram. That's probably the best place. That's at Krystal and Eric with an underscore underneath of it. So that's where we post kind of our day-to-day travels, and you guys can catch up on that on the highlights and on stories.
And we're Krystal and Eric on YouTube as well. Krystal with a K, Eric with a C. And we're making videos about all these places throughout the Midwest, but we also have our previous travels there as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed seeing your content so far. I liked you just were posting about the big planes, I think in Kansas.
Yes, that was so cool.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
The
Kansas
Aviation
Aviation Museum. I know, like that's the thing. Like Kansas, who knew it was the aviation capital? I don't relate planes to Kansas at all. It was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was there last year, and I really enjoyed it. I got to go out. I didn't go down to Wichita, but in Topeka and around that area and kind of upper middle of Kansas. But there's so much out there, actually. There's a lot to see and do.
There was.
Truly, my favorite drive, I think, was through Kansas. And I was blown away by, because people say, oh, there's nothing there, but there's plenty there. A little star. Definitely a place to go back to.
Yeah, very cool. Well, Krystal and Eric, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. And good luck on the rest of your travels. And we'll have to talk again after you finish your current trip and have traveled some more.
For sure. Thanks for having us, Kyle.
Yes, absolutely. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Well, I hope to see you around the world somewhere soon.
Woohoo. Let's do it.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify and Anchor. And now you can also listen on YouTube. Links are in the description below. If you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page and or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my new show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to discuss one specific travel topic, whether that be questions I get from listeners, sharing some souvenirs that I've bought over the years, or discussing one particular city or country that I've been to, and so much more. You'll be able to listen to that via Spotify and Anchor as well, and be able to see the video version, which I'm really excited about, on YouTube. So check it out. I promise you won't be disappointed. And thanks again for listening, and I will see you around the world soon.